recorded? Should I just sort of reintroduce?
Yeah. Well, it would be one video. It should be, but now we're live again. So sorry,
All right, so
everyone, for
just
the
start.
issues. But
Are we actually live right this second? No?
Yeah, I believe
Yep.
so.
Yep.
It says live
All
in
right.
the corner there.
All right, so we had a little bit of technical difficulties, and we said our prayers. Godless engineer joined us in prayer, and now we're back on air. So you were telling us, engineer, you were telling us you're a young buck, and you're kind of a nerdy kid, and that surprised me. I would have guessed, as I started to say, I would have guessed you were like a kind of party guy, even a football player, going out drinking with your friends on the weekends. But you say no, you were kind of nerdy. And were you trying to join a Catholic group at this time, or go ahead? High school?
Well, no, I mean, so in high school, I was very much a nerdy kid. I valued the science and math courses that I was in. I really didn't like my English courses because I didn't really understand them. But my math courses, I was pretty into, because I would eventually be in like the AP calculus class, and I was taking the higher like education math in high school, and the same way with science. I remember my 11th grade year in high school, I was in an advanced biology degree, not degree, but course.
Right.
It was just me and 3 other people in the class. So it was a pretty fun class that year.
Wow.
But yeah, so I mean, like I studied, in high school. I mean, I played football 6th grade of middle school, and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's just a Southern thing. Maybe this Southern gives you the kind of like, one of the guys persona. But anyway, so okay, so what was the youth group thing? Were you trying to connect with Catholicism in these years, or when did you start like pulling away and going, this ain't for me?
Well, no. So after my family left the Catholic Church when I was like 7 or 8, I never went back really.
Okay.
My dad, he's still Catholic, and he still goes to Catholic school, and not still goes to Catholic school, but he still goes to Catholic like church services and everything like that. And but I found a non-denominational church that like a few of my friends were going to, and so it was more about connecting with like people my own age and stuff like that. So
I gotcha.
Yeah, so the youth group was there was a Bible study group that I was in that met, I believe, on Tuesdays. We would meet and we would get a Bible lesson, and it was just like me and like 5 other guys and whatnot. And then I would go to the youth services on Wednesday nights because my friends were there. And yeah, and so it was I don't know. It was kind of a time where I was really trying to be like that, what I thought was a good Christian like person, like something that I thought that I needed to do. And it didn't occur to me too much later that I didn't have to do that in order to be a good person, or be the or be like a I don't know. I guess just good person in general, because that's what I always associated it with. Like, oh, I'm not a good person because I don't go to church, or, like I need to go to church. This is just something I need to do. And like, it didn't occur to me till later that, it's like, well, I don't need to do that in order to, be a good person or be considered a good person.
Right. So that's actually fairly committed, like going to church, trying to connect with the youth group twice a week. And so when did you start pulling away, would you say? Did it begin then? Or did it begin?
I mean, I was never all of that, like really connected to like church, like the concept of God and the church and all that. Like I still believed in God and everything, but I wasn't all that connected.
Okay.
And so like I would go to church on occasion, and there were times when I would really want to try to get back into being a Christian and everything like that. And you know, I had friends around me that facilitated it, that really encouraged me and everything. And it just, I don't know, just one day, you know, I just stopped going, and it, you know, it didn't really seem to phase me all that much. So it wasn't a big break. Like me stopping to go to church, stop going to church or being really all that committed as a Christian didn't stop me from believing in a God. And it was until I believe I was 25 when I actually stopped believing in God, and I became okay with the fact that I was an atheist. And that was the biggest hurdle, I would say, is the accepting, you know, the fact that I don't believe in a God, because it felt so wrong at first. You know, I didn't want to admit it to people, and then once I did, I felt much better, just about myself in general, because I didn't feel like I had to hide, you know, like that part, like I felt like it was okay for me not to believe in God.
So that was when you were around 25. Were most of the people you grow up, this is the Bible Belt where you're from, right? And most of the people
Yeah,
are probably Christian that
very
where
much
you
so.
worked. And so was the struggle internally, like you started to organically like not believe in God, and then you kind of felt what, some guilt about it, or some I should believe, or and then one day you were just, you know what, F it, screw it, I'm cool. Is that am I hearing that right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't so much that, because it was more of a gradual process.
Okay.
Because, you know, like I really struggled to keep on believing in God, and I struggled, you know, going to church, and you know, I struggled with, you know, the fact that I hadn't really read the Bible cover to cover, and you know, I didn't do things that I thought I was supposed to do as a Christian, and so like I felt that guilt because I wasn't living up to what I thought it meant to be like a good Christian person.
Right.
And then it was actually the breaking point for me, and it wasn't like I immediately stopped believing in God after this. It just got me thinking about it.
Okay.
Was one night when a friend, after I was actually part of a Bible, not Bible, but it was a church softball team, and we had got done playing a game, and my friend said to me, I can't remember how it was brought up, but my friend said to me, if you don't believe in the entire Bible cover to cover, literally as it says in the Bible, then you're not a true Christian. And so I had to sit there and think about that for a minute. It's like, do I believe everything that's in the Bible? And I'm like, no. I mean, there are obviously things in there that just couldn't happen ever, like Noah's flood, or you know, several of the things that are in the New Testament that Jesus did didn't make sense. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm not a true Christian at that point. So I had to figure out, you know,
Who was
what.
this guy? Was he like a good friend of yours, or like some, like, was he a good Christian in your eyes? Was this guy,
Well, I
who
mean,
was
he
this
was
dude?
I mean, I guess he was a good Christian in my eyes. I mean, he was one of my oldest friends and one of my closest friends, and
Okay.
you know, he at one time was actually like, I don't know if he did this for just like the wow factor or whatnot, but he went through like a Satanist period where he did the typical.
What?
Yeah, well, I mean, he did the
That's not
typical
a
like
very good
Satan
Christian
things.
either. Did you say, well, you were a Satanist? That's not a very good Christian.
Well, no, no,
That's
no.
not that,
Well,
a
well, well,
Satanist.
Well, hold on. I mean, I'm saying he went through like a little dark period where like he wore black fingernail polish, and he did the whole goth thing, and he claimed he was a Satanist and everything. But then a little bit later on, you know, he got saved, and it was
Oh, okay. I
by
got you.
somebody that
Okay.
was close to him, and so then he was full force like, I'm a Christian. And I was friends with him during both times that he was like that. And like, I mean, I didn't care what he believed. I mean, he seemed to be all right. And like, we would go to, it wasn't football games. Maybe it was a football game. See, I was in band, so I would have had to have actually been in band,
What
like
were you
been at the
playing?
football
What'd you
games.
play?
I was a trumpet
Oh,
player.
snap. So was I. Until like eighth grade, I played trump. Oh, wait. No, ninth grade was the last year I was in band. Um, okay, go ahead. So what was he listening to when he was a Satanist, by the way? What music was he listening to in his goth stage? Do you remember?
Oh,
Was it like
well, I
Marilyn
mean, like,
Manson? And
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I know Marilyn Manson was in there. The German metal group, that sings
Doxin or
Du
something?
Hast
Is that
Rammstein. Yeah, Rammstein.
Rammstein? Yeah. Okay.
He
Okay.
listened to a lot of that, and it was just sort of a phase for him. I think he was doing it just for the wow factor, because like a
Right.
lot of people at school made fun of him for it and everything. And but I mean, he was a good guy. I really liked him, and he was nice, even though like a lot of people like treated him horribly just because he believed in different shit. And so, I was friends with him then, and I was friends with him, as he was a Christian, too. But when he said that to me, it just got me thinking about, what, being that, you're not a true Christian. I thought of him as being as good a Christian as any. And, he was all about like being saved and doing what's right by God and all that other stuff. He was, I mean, he was really cognizant of that. And so, I looked up to him, and so I took him at his word. And so I had to figure out what I actually believed at that point. And it
Okay.
wasn't a light switch moment. Like, it was a light switch as far as whether or not I thought I was a Christian. But see, now I know that's a no true Scotsman fallacy. And I shouldn't have been fooled by that at the time, but I didn't know like about, any kind of like a logical process or anything like that.
Okay.
But I had to figure out what I actually believed, and over the course of about 6 months to a year, I would say, I eventually came to the idea that that there's nothing that proves that God exists, so I just simply don't believe in a God. And so yeah,
Were you
it was a
checking
much
out
longer
atheist?
dramatic process.
Were you checking out atheist stuff during this period, like YouTube or Richard Dawkins or any of that stuff, or was this happening just in the context of your local
Well,
friends
I
and
would
stuff?
listen. I mean, I would listen to debates. I was very big into like listening to different people debate on
Uh huh.
topics, and I was very much into looking at both sides of the argument and trying to figure out what makes sense to me.
Right.
And it seemed like at every turn, the religious side of the argument just never made sense, but the more, I guess, logical and scientific side of the argument uh, always made much more sense to me. Like the reasoning was much clearer, and it didn't seem to rely on believing in magical things. So I eventually just became okay with the fact that I didn't believe in a deity.
Okay. And then what? So take us to. Do you consider yourself an atheist activist? Probably, right?
Yeah, I would consider myself an atheist activist. I mean, I'm pretty big into promoting a positive look for atheism.
And you're
I'm very
pretty
much.
committed even outside of your channel. Like you hang out with like Drew and Dan in real life a little or a lot. I know they're sort of close, or maybe some of these people, and go to some events outside of just your channel, right? I think.
Well, yeah. Like I've been to NanoCon before. I've been to the American Atheist Convention, Reason Rally. Last year, I actually ran Faithless Forum with like Drew and Thomas and Telltale and Prophet Azad and a guy named Phil. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, outside, I would say that I'm very much an atheist activist. I wouldn't say that I'm a professional one because like I don't this isn't my full-time job. I have a
Okay.
regular 40-hour job that I work.
Oh, do you really? Wow. You got to be busy then. Just time wise, that's probably because your channel puts out a lot of content. From what I gather, from what I can see, you put out probably 5 things a week at least, right?
Yeah,
Or more.
normally it's 5 days a week, posting at like 8:30 a.m. generally. And I mean, it really doesn't take all that much time. It might take a couple hours, like when I get home from work. and depending on what else I have to do, it could run me a little late. But for the most part, like I've streamlined my process to where I record, like I front load like a lot of content for me to edit, and so I don't have to constantly be recording things because I do these live streams and I can cut up portions of live streams and put it on the channel. And
Right.
then
So you're sort of nailing, you sort of over time, like nailing down the process. So it's streamlined and scientific. And so you just kind of have a system worked out. So it's not really, is that right?
I wouldn't say that it's so much scientific. It's just I've been able to figure out ways to incorporate me recording into also producing content for the channel, but then I don't know. I've just managed to do it in a way to where I have a lot of content that I'm sitting on right now that I have to edit up and put on the channel, and it's like a queue that keeps on filling up so that I always have content to edit.
Okay, before I forget, because if I don't ask you this now, I'll forget. You went to the Godless Iowans wedding, right? And you were dressed as a preacher? Was that a Halloween?
Well, yeah, it was a priest. Well, I mean, it was an actual Catholic priest shirt and everything like that.
Okay, so it was the real thing that you stole from the church.
No. I bought it. Like I bought it from an actual like Catholic store, and
really?
The reason why is I officiated.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's what I thought. What does that mean? Like it was like a gag thing, or?
Well, no, I mean it was like a costume kind of wedding because it was on Halloween.
Right. And was it fun?
Oh yeah, it was great. I love seeing Matt, the Godless Iowan. I love seeing him. I love seeing Mrs. Snarky and Little Snarky, and I believe Matt Clark was there, as well as Cirrus and several other people.
Yeah, I saw Cirrus. I just saw the photo, and everyone was in costume because it was Halloween. That was in actual Iowa itself.
Oh yeah, we went to Iowa. We drove from North Alabama to Iowa. Coming back, we almost got killed by a couple deer, actually.
Because you hit it in the car?
No. I managed to miss them, but only barely on one occasion, but I managed to miss them.
Wow. That happened in Maine. My Uncle Walter had a house in Maine. And one year they were driving in a truck and they went something like 20 miles an hour into a buck. And the buck didn't move. walked away, walked into the woods, and the front end of the truck was like all caved in. So those things are powerful.
Yeah.
Those animals.
Yeah, I was really glad that I didn't have to, or we didn't wreck, because I mean deers will take out a whole car.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to demolish Casey's car.
I just wanted to ask. Oh, sorry. You
go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
You seem like you have a whole lot of fun making your videos for your channel, and it sounds like you got a great system where you've got everything backloaded and ready to edit and things like that. I was just curious, what are the favorite types of videos that you do for your channel that I don't know. Yeah, I guess your favorite ones to do.
Well, I mean, they're all my favorite, really. But I would have to say that my favorite ones are of course the response videos that I do, and that covers a wide range of topics of, from religious type videos to the flat earther and crazy conspiracy theory kind of videos.
Yeah, I just watched your flat earther, your recent flat earther one.
The hate videos are fun. When he does the hate videos.
Yeah.
Oh, the hate comments.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. I've seen a couple of those.
Also, what got you into making, what made you want to make your channel? I don't know, did you have some, other person that you were watching that, you got really inspired by or looking up to?
No, it wasn't really I got inspired by anybody in particular. I was part of the atheist community before starting my YouTube channel, and
Gotcha. Mhm.
my Facebook page had actually gotten fairly large before I started doing videos, and so I mean I was already kind of active in the social media sphere,
Mhm.
and I felt like that doing YouTube was kind of the next step, like putting my face out there and doing a YouTube video, response video, and everything like that. Like it just felt like that was the next step for
A
me.
natural
And so,
progression. How many years ago was that when you started?
oh, let's see. When I my first video, I believe I put out in maybe 2013 or 2014, but I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
actually. Well, yeah, that was that. Yeah, and then like I didn't get serious about doing it until I would say 2015, 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, 2016 really is when I
Right,
started
because
being a bit serious about it.
I remember when I was talking to Cirrus and Drew, my mind was blown by how recent they were. I was like, "What? You guys? You're kidding, right?" Because they already have these like fairly big channels. Cirrus is growing really quickly. So what in your earlier process you started out just kind of messing around with YouTube videos before you started to really zero in and try to take it more seriously. Is that what you said?
Well, yeah, I didn't exactly have a very conducive home life to being able to produce like I guess regular content.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I was in kind of a bad marriage, and eventually we got divorced and everything,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and that kind of coincides with me ramping up my efforts on the YouTube channel because I had a much easier home life after that point.
Okay. So do you do any like hunt and fish? Do you do any of that type of stuff?
No, no, I don't hunt and fish unless you count on like Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, that's right. You have a do you have a gaming channel actually, or is it you
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah, I do.
how's
And I'm actually kind of changing it up for this year because in the past I would just do like live streams almost every weekend and then cut up the live streams and put them on the channel, but I'm doing more of the recording offline and then editing those up and put them up on the channel. And I mean, those are just really for fun, and that's why it's really been inconsistent is because it takes a back seat to like the main channel.
right? The main thing is atheism. You're just kind of trying to have a good time with those other things.
Yeah.
Is that's how PewDiePie got started, right? It was that even what he is a gamer. I've never really watched him. I just know of him
Well,
as like
yeah,
the
I
big.
mean, PewDiePie is pivoted his content, and he used to mainly play video games and whatnot. But I mean, even back then, when he was really playing a lot of video games, he would still post up like product reviews, and he would do other kind of weird, fun videos. And so then he just kind of gradually eased into doing like meme and social commentary type of videos, and that's what I mean, he's just kind of going with what he really feels like making. And there are on occasions where he still plays video games, but I mean, he did a fantastic job of pivoting his content to where he just didn't like lose all of his subscribers. And so
Right.
I mean, he did pretty well, doing that.
Right. It's kind of like you start out in a niche and everybody's watching you because, and that's apparently a really big niche. People interested in watching people play video games and gaming community. And then you just kind of slowly transition because they get interested in you as a personality, and then they kind of want to be interested in all the things you talk about. But if you go too quickly, you lose the whole people who were there from the start, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, if you pivot too quickly, you'll end up losing like people kind of quick, and that's kind of like when you pivot on your channel, you have to be cognizant of the fact that people subscribe for one thing, and then you're gonna start doing another thing. And so, like, I've sort of slightly pivoted my channel a little bit, but it's like I've pivoted it in my own niche. So, you know, it still worked. And I would say that that's probably what PewDiePie did too, because like the gaming scene kind of mixes with the meme and social commentary and all that kind of scene a little bit. Because those, like, you have a lot of channels out there that are like gaming social commentary. And so it's not that big of a pivot. It's still in his wheelhouse there. But for me, the way that I pivoted was like I started doing more anti-science stuff, like more of the flat earther and crazy conspiracy theory things. And I'm going to try to get more into like the woo, like homeopathy kind of healthcare. I want to start
Yeah,
doing more of that this year. So that'll be a new direction for me. And
that
but it's
stuff's
still within my niche.
right. That stuff seems to actually be drawing. Like I noticed Drew does a lot of things on that, and Cirrus does some stuff on. He does woo a lot. From what I gather, that stuff actually for some is drawing an audience. Like there's people really interested in that, just outside or in the context of atheism, but in general, that seems to be a
Yeah.
popular thing on YouTube.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people look for it, and then when a lot of people are looking for it, and they find like somebody that's saying, "Hey, this is wrong. Here's the reasons why." They kind of, you know, their cognitive dissonance kicks in, that uncomfortable feeling, and so they react in, you know, with either hatred and vitriol, and then just dismissing whatever's being said. But you know, that's only for I would say, I guess probably the larger portion of them, of people in general, would probably react that way. But then you have another small set that would be open to listening, and so that's who you really target. Like Drew really targets those kind of people. Like Drew's not targeting the full on like essential oils, you know, health nut moms that you know, cover their kids in some kind of lavender oil to cure their aging or something. You
right,
know.
right. He's the person who's looking for actual solid information and wondering if they can actually get some sort of medical value from homeopathy is what I'm guessing what he targets. I don't know. I watch a lot of Drew's videos, or a decent amount, but I don't watch those. Um, but that's just a guess.
Yeah.
Uh, debates. You do a pretty decent amount of debates yourself, right? On YouTube, or you do, from what I can tell, a fair amount. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say so. I try to do debates when I can, and discussions. I guess I kind of prefer the discussions more, because then there's more interaction between me and my opponent. And there's more chance for me to like ask questions and figure out why they think something is true.
Right.
And I mean, I like the formal debates too, but I don't know, the discussions are more interesting.
Yeah. For me, I'm not sure if formal debates are actually. I'm not sure if I like them yet. I haven't done enough to really say, but I'm not. Go ahead.
In my opinion, the formal debates are good for people that want to try to make a decision on a particular position, and that's where because in the formal debates, it's not about trying to convince the other person they're wrong or anything like that. You're trying to present your best case that counters their case, so that people in the audience can make a decision. So the formal kind of debates do help the audience more so than what's on screen. But the discussions, I feel you kind of get that same effect, but you get a lot more interaction between the people. So, I mean, I think the formal debates definitely have their place, and a lot of people love watching that kind of format. But then you also have people that like just listening to a discussion and having two people on opposite sides of the issue without having the formal debate structure.
Right. Yeah. John, what would you say?
Yeah.
I wonder if he was. Is he?
No, I was listening. Yeah.
Okay.
I've noticed that a lot of times with the debates, it's almost like now there's occasionally some really good ones, but like the big debates that are like in grand halls and things like that, it always feels to me like it's just one side is placating to their audience and like wanting to get applause and things like that. And then the other side's also trying to speak the exact truths that their audience wants and then getting applause from them. And so I don't know, it never seems like there's any sort of like resolution between the two positions. That
it's
it feels
contest
like
of talking
sides,
points.
yeah, like both sides already came up with their position that they agree with, and then there's no room for actually like any moving anywhere, like unless like there's somebody that was like truly like had no position between the two and they watch the debate, and then it's usually whoever's the more eloquent speaker or it seems to like win the most points during the debate actually kind of gets the emotional side siding with that person. I don't know. There's certain debates that are really well executed where I think it as long as you can like focus on trying to get people where they can accept the position, because I don't know, it seems like a lot of the times with these types of debates, most of the people have already like pre-established their positions and they're not willing to budge at all. I don't know, just as an audience member though, that's how I see it.
Yeah, that can definitely be a thing. It's like a contest of talking points, and people, they're playing to their crowd, and then the other side plays to their crowd, often in the debates.
Yeah, exactly.
But so I was about to say, so John, Godless Engineer. So how have you done a bunch of them?
I mean, I've done a fair number. I'm definitely have more than a few under my belt. And I try to be available and try to do, debates and discussions when I can.
Okay. So what's your main focus though is kind of building your channel, and your channel really mostly is focused on atheism, correct? I mean, you're branching out a little, but it doesn't sound to me, or I don't know, maybe you tell me.
Well, I mean, I've not necessarily pivoted away from atheism, but I would say that atheism is only maybe about half of the content that I do. Because like normally Mondays and Tuesdays are going to be more atheist related, because I have a anti-religious response video that goes up on Mondays, and then on Tuesdays we do a Bible study, Casey and I, and then on Wednesday it's comments day, which is kind of a toss up because it's either flat earth related or it's like God related. And then Thursday and Friday, those are generally, I try to post like some cut ups of my live streams on like the Thursday, and those are generally flat earth videos. And then Friday, if I ever do like discussions or anything like that with people, I'll do Friday as the discussion or interview or something like that kind of day. Or if I had something specifically that I wanted to record that week and I got it done and I was able to edit it and put it up that day, then I would do that.
Wow. So yeah, so you're churning out a lot of stuff and working full time. Now, I missed this when I started. So how did you switch from I don't really believe in God to I'm going to put up videos on YouTube about atheism? Like there's a huge space in between there where a lot of people float around but never get to where you got. So what would you say got you there more than anything? Did you watch other videos and go, one day I want to be like Godless Cranium, for example? I don't know how many years has he been putting videos out? Like 2? Maybe?
I'm fairly certain I've been around a little bit longer than Godless Cranium.
Okay, so he watched you and said, one day I'm going to be the Godless Engineer.
No, he probably watched me and was like, I can do this. If he
can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. That's what people say if they watch my videos.
Well, between those 2 points though is you have Facebook, and that's where I really.
Oh yeah, okay, you did say that. So that's really that was almost like beginning of activism, but it was almost like organically out of your opinions, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would make memes and I would share articles and everything like that on my page. And like I remember one summer, I can't remember what year, it might have been 2014 or something. My page blew up, and got to over 80,000, and then eventually over 100,000, and I think we're sitting at 133 or 34,000 right now on the page. But I would post up memes that I would make, and other memes that I found, and news articles and everything like that. And I just did it on a consistent basis, and I slowly grew, that kind of influence on there. And like I said before, I just felt like YouTube was like a next step in what I wanted to do, and so that's why I started doing that.
Wait, so Facebook, you started putting like these are atheist memes you're putting up, like what? Just
Yeah.
like jokes about like God or church or religion or something, and then
Well,
it blew
yeah.
up to they all of a sudden like people started following you off of that to the point where you have like 150,000 Facebook friends that are checking out your memes. Is that what you mean? Is that what
Well, I
happened?
mean, not friends. Like 134,000 people have liked the page,
Okay,
and so that like not that many gets my actual content.
okay,
Well,
I
they,
got you.
they follow the page.
Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, so it's wow, but that's still pretty interesting. Because it's kind of like what I said. It's almost like organically out of a hobby, you're just kind of putting this up there because you think it's funny or it kind of speaks to you, and then it just sort of grows from there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that the atheists are way ahead of the curve on in terms of, as far as I can tell, the social media and atheists are way ahead of Christians in terms of using it, producing on it, mastering it. Is this
Well,
true? Would you
Well,
say
I don't,
that
I
or
don't
no?
know, because I mean there are plenty of like pastors and whatnot that are on Facebook that are insanely popular. You've got Greg Locke. He's pretty big on Facebook. Joshua Fierstein. I mean, he was really big on Facebook.
Is it
Um,
Fierstein, the coffee cup, the Starbucks coffee cup guy?
yeah,
That's I know him just from YouTube actually.
yeah. Yeah, and like the just a lot of those types of pastors, I guess. But you also have like the Facebook pages that just post, I guess, what I would call innocuous kind of memes or statements, on their page, and they would pretty much just say type amen if you agree or whatnot, and then you have so many people typing amen, and that signaled to Facebook to promote their stuff, and so they grew to pretty large pages. Like there's a lot of large religious pages on Facebook.
Right, and there's actually I noticed that with there are a lot of big like Bible quotes on Twitter that have a couple million followers or 1.5 million followers or something, where they just print out Bible quotes. And I
Yeah.
noticed that people just say "Amen." Amen. Every so there's like 15 comments. It's basically like "Amen, Amen, Amen." But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I
I mean
noticed.
that tells the algorithms that they need to promote that content because people are interacting with it, and so they promote that content, and so they get even bigger. And that's fine. Like with my content, I post it up, and people can comment or not. Like I try not to. I don't really like the sort of, I guess, vapid kind of comments where they're just like agree or amen or anything like that. Like I like the comments that have some kind of substance to them that really interact and everything. And I've been focused a lot less on Facebook lately, but I've tried to keep up with posting occasionally.
And what about how well do you know? One time I eavesdropped on, I forget who was in your stream, but you guys were talking about, maybe you do it regularly Tuesday night. Like you had some sort of live stream where you guys were talking about, um, you know, making your channels more productive and reaching bigger audience and things like that. And I forget. I started following a YouTuber from you guys. I think Dimin or something, Jin or Dimin. Um, How well do you know that stuff, like the technical ends of like the YouTube algorithms and things like that?
Well, I have a bachelor's in computer engineering and a master's in software engineering. So, I mean,
Oh, you
I've got a
do?
pretty good, yeah, I've got a pretty good handle, I feel, on like how the algorithm works and SEO and how to get things found. Like, I know recently I did a response video to some guy, and all in his comments when he made a response video about my video, um, everybody in his comments was like, I can't search for a call for an uprising without finding that guy's video, like at the very top of the page. So, I mean, I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on the technical side of like YouTube.
On how to like game the algorithms and search engine, like for people, I don't know, I guess people listening would probably know what we're talking about, but like using keywords in the title so that YouTube picks it up and
Yeah.
it gets, when people are searching for it, they're more likely to find your page. There's a whole science to that. There's a whole gaming of the system. Of how to make your channel promote itself, kind of, right?
I do have another question for John though. Especially in regards to your channel, like what are you hoping, I guess, to get out of like your channel? Like what I don't know, are you just kind of like doing this for fun, or are you like hoping that it actually like helps people be able to think more scientifically about things, something like that?
Well, so I do have a few goals, and that one of the goals being to educate people or to give people another perspective to consider. But also it is to have fun. If I ever find myself not having fun with a particular video or concept or topic, then I just simply won't do it, because if I'm not having fun with it, then it's going to show on camera. It's gonna show in how in the quality of the video and everything. So there's no point in me trying to make it good when I just simply can't. But yeah, I mean, I do it for fun, but I also do it to help people. I've had several people, like either in the comments or Twitter DMs or on Facebook DMs, or PMs, where they have told me that like something that I posted up or whatnot has helped them, with their own personal lives, and being an atheist and being surrounded by religious people telling them they can't be good without God. And so I get a lot of those kind of messages of people that say that I really appreciate everything that you're doing. So I mean, that's a pretty big motivator, but also I do it because I love the community that I'm in. And I love interacting with people. I love presenting my thoughts and hearing others either correct me or tell me that I did a good job, or that I was funny. Like obviously people love hearing that, but when people correct or add their own 2 cents or whatnot, I feel like it broadens my own view. And it also gives me a chance to consider anybody that has a reasonable like counter to me. And so, I mean, I just really like the community that I'm in, and I like supporting the community that I'm in, and continuing to build like a strong, I guess, atheist community.
It's probably also like really helpful for the people like in those more southern states where there's not a lot of like fellow people that think the same way as you, and being able to have that sense of community online is a great blessing for a lot of people to be able to have, especially like in even like I can't even imagine like different places, like people having living in Iraq and being an atheist, and how at least there's something for them to be able to get something out of through the internet.
Get beheaded for watching.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully
get killed for, at least there's something that they could get killed for clicking onto.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen, but yeah.
Hey, when you were on Drew's, who do you know there were the 3 people who were deconverting from Islam? Do you know who I'm talking about on Drew's 100,000 live stream thing?
Yeah,
you were there, right?
Yeah, I know that a lot of them, if not all of them, were from the ex-Muslims in North America. Like I think one was was it Armin? I think Armin
Oh
Navabi
yeah,
was
Arvin
on there.
Armin Navabi, I believe. Yeah, I follow him on
Yeah,
Twitter. Yeah, he's good.
yeah, we should get him on here. I want to
Him
try and
and
get. I want to get some
what
of
is
them.
it? Secular Jihad. That's another like their whole crew that they have there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, being an atheist in like Iraq and everything,
That's hardcore.
Yeah.
Seriously? You think we're persecuting you, Godless Engineer? You haven't seen anything yet. You think we're busting you? You think we're busting your chops, man? we're easy compared to those guys who come at you. It's like, you know, one of them even mentioned, for real, not playing around, about her friends won't hang out with her because they're afraid that someone's going to throw acid on her. I don't know if she's since moved, but that's a real thing. That even happens in England. I mean, that has happened in London.
Yeah, it has. And actually, a while back, I had a strike on my channel because I had posted up just like a video that was like security camera footage of this group of Muslim women who were attempting to kidnap their own sister because of who she was going to marry or something like that. Like I was posting it up to try to, I guess, raise awareness or something. That was like really early in my channel where I didn't really have any kind of structure to it. And so, but it recently, like I guess in the last 6 or 12 months, got flagged, and that was posted since like 2013 or so.
Oh, it only got flagged in the last 6 months. Wow, that's pretty telling, because that has a lot to do with how they're becoming more psychopathic about. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm really opposed to them deciding to police hate speech on themselves. That's what they flagged it for, right? Hate speech.
Yeah. They really are trying to crack down on it, and I don't like it either. But because the hate speech portion can get kind of convoluted. Now there are some obvious, hate speech kind of situations, but I think that some people can convolute the conversation to the point where almost anything is hate speech.
Right, and they keep what you saw. What happened at Skylar, right? Did you know
Skylar
this?
Fiction? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't even using he just used the phrase to say, like, well, this is wrong. How I guess Matt Powell is saying this and that, and his was the channel that got struck for it. So I don't know if they're doing policing hate speech by algorithm, but if they are, that's even scarier, because he could just make total mistakes, of context or how someone's using it, and it's just not a good. It's not a good. They can't necessarily be trusted to decide what's hateful and what's not. That's how I view it. The viewer can decide. But I guess you shy away from. You probably have a pretty good awareness of what gets demonetized, I would guess, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, pretty much any of my content that deals with Islam or Muslims, that will get limited on the monetization. And surprisingly, my mythicism content actually rarely gets fully monetized.
What's the wow, that's pretty interesting. What's the take? I know you're kind of a mythicist, I guess, but I'm not really sure what your take is. I haven't really listened to your debates on it. What are you putting up that you don't think he existed, or that you think it's questionable, or what? And what's the angle on the videos that get demonetized?
Well, I think that Jews in the first century and earlier than that were looking towards the Bible for a Messiah, and they were using the scriptures in order to figure out what kind of characteristics this Messiah would have. And then later on, we see people starting to report that this Messiah had actually come and had died and was resurrected and forgave all sins and everything. And so it just seems to me like it's more likely that since they were looking for this Messiah, and the Messiah they were looking for is the exact one that pops up, it seems like it's more likely that that particular Messiah was just made up. And of course, that's more of a refutation of the, I guess, the literal biblical version of Christ or Jesus. But I don't think that there's enough information that we can say Jesus definitely existed, like the human person Jesus definitely existed and
Okay,
started.
so you think it was a mythological construct that was written to fulfill the scripture itself, not necessarily. Do you think there was a human being that they based it on, or no?
I
Or
don't
maybe.
think that. Well, no, I don't think that there's a human being that they based it on, because you can trace like every portion of Jesus's life to some kind of concept in the Old Testament. And like even if you read the birth narrative in the first version of it, being Matthew, you have it every section. It ends it with saying, "We know this because of the scriptures," and so like it just seems to me like it's more likely that like first century Jewish Christians made up what the Messiah was supposed to be, what he was supposed to do here on earth, and then myths and stuff developed around him. Because you don't just have the version of Jesus that we have now. In the first century, you had an amalgam of different like Jesus figures that popped up, and those are chronicled like in the Dead Sea Scrolls, for instance. They talk about it, or they have scrolls in there where they talk about like the different versions of this Jesus or this Christ character, this Messiah. And so it just seems more likely that since there was like if there was a physical person that lived, then there shouldn't be so many myths about him. But because it seems like nobody knew anything about this person, they just made things up, and that's why you see such a diverse like such a diverse set of characters, I guess.
Interesting. Okay, so two questions. Do you know the Bible better now than you did when you were a Christian?
Oh, definitely.
You do Bibles probably a lot better, right?
Well, yeah, we're going through the Bible from cover to cover, but we're using a daily Bible. So that's a Bible that's been sectioned up into 365 parts so that you can read one thing a day. And sometimes we lump a couple days together because they go together really well, and it would break the flow if we broke them up. But it pretty much uses I want to say either the NIV or the English, the ESV, one of those two. But it also has like footnotes where it talks about the different like if there's a different translations or whatnot that read differently, it's got footnotes in it that talk about that. And so it's a really good way to read the Bible.
Do you like the Bible? I know that's a weird question, but do you like it? Are there parts of it that you're like, I love this part of the Bible, like the Psalms or something? This is really good. Is it even literature, or this speaks to me, or anything like that?
No, I mean, I'm not really all that. Like, I'm fascinated by the Bible because I'm fascinated about the theology of Christianity, because when I was a Christian, I didn't know like the full theology of Christianity and what like the entire Bible said. Like, I just didn't know that because, I went to a Catholic private school. So, I mean, they taught us things, but it was really just certain parts of the Bible that they taught. It was like the quote unquote good sections of the Bible. And they were really more about teaching us what it was like, what it meant to be Christ-like. And so like we got a bunch of the Jesus parables and everything like that that were fed to us, and that was pretty much the bulk of my Bible studying. And then when I was actually part of a Bible study group later on, I really wasn't there to study the Bible. I was really there to have fun with friends.
Right.
And
to connect with your friends.
Yeah. So I didn't really pay attention to the actual Bible study all that much.
Do you ever look at, this is sort of related, but do you know Peterson's maps of meanings and his takes on the Old Testament? Have you ever looked at any of that stuff?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. You might be interested in that at some point. It's not the Bible as literal truth. It's more the Bible as metaphorical and psychological truth? Like, what's the meaning underneath the stories? Not necessarily from a Christian perspective, but not from a secular perspective either.
Yeah, it's
Sort
kind
of
of like
splitting.
him trying to discern, like, if you were to read Shakespeare and try to get like what's important here, what's the implicit.
Why do people care about this?
Yeah,
right.
Right.
It's pretty.
You might be interested in it.
Oh no, yeah,
might
that
actually-
definitely sounds interesting. You'll have to DM me like the name of the book.
Okay, we could do that. I was going to ask you one other thing on this topic. Oh, so what are they demonetizing? What is it? Your position is controversial, or they just don't want to touch that it triggers people, or?
Well,
I
mean, it is kind of controversial. I mean, it's like, I guess they kind of treat it akin to like bashing Muhammad from Islam. They just consider it bashing, I guess, Jesus maybe, because I mean, I've had perfectly fine videos that had little to no cursing in it, and only talked about like the reasons why I don't think Jesus is a real person, and that got confirmed as limited to no ads. But you see, the thing is that when it gets dinged initially, it's by a bot, and then when
right, that's what I was saying with the hate speech. That's why you can't trust this stuff, because it's not. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I was going to say that when you hit review, it has to physically be reviewed by a person on the other end. And so if the person on the other end is a religious person or something like that, and they hear me talk about how Jesus doesn't exist, I mean, I can totally understand
send it to me, or
like, this isn't appropriate.
Exactly. Send it to me, or John will be like, yeah, strike this mofo. What is he talking about, Jesus? Demonetize this guy. Get his money. You send it to like Seth Andrews, he'll be like, no, give him more money. But in that context, couldn't all atheist content be somewhat controversial and subject to demonetization? If we're talking,
and I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes there are perfectly fine videos that don't make the cut for full monetization. But I mean, for the most part, I try to tackle the more crazy or I guess not vitriolic, but the more crazy and the more insane, I guess, kind of videos. Like whenever I go to do a response video, like for instance, the other week I posted up my response to this woman who thought that there's a divine connection between you and your higher self, and if you didn't believe in God, then you lost your virtue and you are a lower evolved being whenever you died and went to the other side.
Awesome.
Yeah, so like that's like a crazy, like on a different level than just somebody believing in God.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty interesting though. It's pretty out there. I'll give you that. So, when you deal with mythicism, this is just my own personal impression, it tends to trigger people out more, correct? Or no? Like people tend to get upset about it more, don't they? Or no?
About the religion or the mythicism or the
mythicist angle. Well, how controversial is I mean, you tell me. You're the atheist. How controversial? It seems to me that people respond to that with more emotion than standard atheism. You know, God doesn't exist, Bible, Old Testament and slavery, yada yada yada. Right. Am I wrong? You tell me. You're the atheist.
You're not wrong. There are like a lot of the response is pretty vitriolic whenever I say that, and I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I guess just it really strikes that emotional chord with people. But I mean, there's even atheists out there that respond very emotionally and vitriolic whenever they discuss this. And they start sounding just like the same old, I guess, nutter kind of people that just the only thing that they have left is to throw insults at you.
Right.
And so, I mean, kind of at that point, it's like there's no real conversation to be had here. I mean, I get it that you think that I'm wrong, but at least, tell me how I'm wrong. And then if I'm not convinced, there's no reason for you to like start throwing shit everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the part of it. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that I click on that I'm like, well, that person's just wrong. But it would take a lot for me to even be moved to the point where I even want to like bother to challenge them. Like, what do I care if I think they're wrong? All right, well, moving right along. I think that guy's wrong, and let me click on Pootie Pie. Let's see what he's doing. But that's what keeps Twitter and YouTube going. Is like, your opinions need to be challenged for this reason, I guess. I just find it interesting because I'm not exactly sure why. To me, it seems people get more triggered out by it than just standard atheists. But it could be because it's newer or it's more cutting edge. I don't know. John, what's your opinion? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Cutting edge of what? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Because it's just more of a new. It's more of a, it's kind of like moving the bar, I guess, in a way, from just
you're talking about mysticism?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. Plus, there's also the added thing of there being both atheists and religious people that are on the same side and arguing like together on things. And I find it weird in that particular instance because like the atheists will have the same arguments as religious people, but like the religious people are like, yeah, that also proves that Jesus rose from the dead 3 days after he died. And then the atheists are like, no, that didn't happen, but Jesus still existed. So it's kind of like, I don't know, for me being a mythicist on the other side of it, it's really weird to see them like using the same evidence, but then they come to different conclusions with the same evidence.
Right. Yeah, I mean the whole controversy is I don't know. It's there's a lot of these little areas of theological that don't really move the needle for me one way or the other. Like I'm kind of curious about them, but I'm not really that emotionally caught up in how it gets played out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Yeah. And I mean, like, I get that. And I'm totally fine with people not really like caring. But like, I guess for me, the way that I put it before is that I've spent a good portion of my life, just believing things because people told me that they were real and true and all that kind of stuff. Like I've spent so much of my life just believing things because people said they were true. And so when I left religion and I admitted I was an atheist, I had decided that I wasn't just going to, believe, something just because somebody says that it's true. I would want to have evidence. And, I'm not a perfect person. There have been times when I've taken something at face value and it's not been exactly correct. But you see, the thing is that I educate myself and I correct myself and I find out for myself what the actual situation is or what the actual fact is. And so that's what I generally try to keep in mind whenever whenever I listen to a new atheist video or whatnot and they throw out something kind of wild and crazy, like I don't just immediately accept it, or at least I try not to. I try to really think about the position and think if it makes sense, because if it doesn't make sense, then I mean, obviously I'm not going to agree with it. Right. But if I can find some support for it in some way, or if it makes logical sense to me until how it's illogical is pointed out, then I accept that it's the true thing. So I mean, I do try to find positions that are opposite of mine and see if they make sense to me. And I have changed my mind on a couple of positions, because like with mythicism, I changed my position because I did at one time think that Jesus was a historical figure. I was fine with that. But what got me down the path of becoming a mythicist is that I tried to find like good evidence to say that he definitely did exist. And it was because I was having like arguments on Facebook. And so
Right.
once I started looking into it, I found that I just didn't have like any solid evidence that pointed towards him existing. Because, like, you know, with Pilate, we have a stone that has his name carved in on it, and then we have multiple other people that mention Pilate, in Judea around the same time. So, I have no problem with like Pilate existing, and I have no problem with the person that we think of as Paul existing, because we directly have his writings, even if they are in the Bible. I don't have a problem with them being in the Bible, because like I do treat the Bible as different documents that came together over time. But see, for me, treating them like that, it really doesn't help a historicist like position. But I mean, that's just me.
Yeah,
I got.
makes sense, especially because like for figures that didn't actually write anything of their own, all that you're kind of left with are the people that were emotionally tied to having this person kind of be an ultimate figure for them. Like, I don't know, I wonder about like Socrates as well. Like, since he didn't write anything, but I don't know, there's been quite a few followers of Socrates that did write about him. Of course, there was like people that were followers of him and also like critics of him as well that were writing about him.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay, 4 more questions, then we'll let you go. Unless you want to stay, I mean, this is fun. I'm actually having a really good time with this, but you know, it's starting to get long. What was I going to? Four questions. John, what were my 4 questions? John Buck, what were my 4 questions? I don't remember. Oh, what?
I can't
Scholar, read. You can't read my mind. You got to work harder, John. Got to work hard. Can't just sit around. Can't just sit around and look pretty. You're gonna have to start putting some time in. You can't just look pretty and flip the numbers or flip the letters like Vanna White. Okay, so any Christian YouTubers? Now you can say no, and you can say Stephanie. Any Christian YouTubers who you think are good, who are nailing it, or either on like maybe maybe it's entertaining, or you can say no, or you could say me, or you could say Stephanie. Any?
Well, I mean,
none of the above. I knew it. Go ahead.
Well, well, I mean, the only channels that I really like as far as that goes, like religious channels go, are the ones that I look for, you know, like content to like respond to. So, I mean, I guess I wouldn't have you on my list, but only because I wouldn't like look at your channel to like pull out sound clips in order to
you don't hate watch
me.
Huh? You don't hate watch me. You don't watch me to like, it's like Girl Defined, like, oh my God, I can't believe they said this, I'm doing a video. Or do you watch what's the new one that everyone's jumping on? Paul and Morgan show. Do you watch them?
Oh, Paul and Morgan. No, I've seen many other people respond to their stuff, so I might end up liking them, but I actually haven't like seen any of their videos.
I invited him on here because I saw Mr. Atheist was like, he's done a little back and forth with them, who I don't actually know. You're friends with him, right? I said I know all his friends when my comment. You're friends with Mr. Atheist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all you guys are. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I said that in the comment. I said, I know all Mr. Atheist friends, and you're welcome to come on my channel and interview them. It'd be a blast. Maybe I'll reach out to Girl Defined. That'd be fun too. So do you like any of the content though? Not necessarily that you're going to agree with like the religious aspect. You probably won't. But in terms of, do you ever go like, hey, those are cool graphics, or like, you know, she's hot, or any of that?
Well, I do like I believe they're called Saints Unscripted now. It's a Mormon channel.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I do like their channel. They have a really nice like structure and setup to their videos. The STR videos, their Stand to Reason is what it's called. Their videos are okay. They have like really short videos. But I would have to say that I would probably pick the Saints Unscripted would be like my favorite. Although I don't watch them like every time they upload a video, but like I just feel like they've got a really great setup as far as like structure to their videos and stuff.
And what about the atheist videos?
Oh God, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I knew it. There are a lot of them are nailing it. Let's see: Drew, Shannon, Godless Cranium, Cirrus. Who else? Those are the obvious ones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that I probably watch, Godless Iowan and the Non Sequitur show, which they're not strictly an atheist show, but they are sort of secular in that they try not to take a position on one way or the other on things. And so I would have to say my favorite channel right now, though, is the Non Sequitur show.
Really? Did you hear that? Yeah. Those guys, I've interviewed both of them. Steve, you hear that? He's not an atheist. Make sure you understand. He's not an atheist. Both of those guys have been on here. Okay, so that's your favorite one now. And there's a new Christian channel that you're probably going to want to participate in. James, you've probably seen him, right?
James.
The modern day debates.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have watched his a couple times when he's had some people like Apologia. Apologia is another channel that I watch. Like every time he posts up, maybe I don't watch it immediately, but I always eventually end up watching it.
You hear that, Paul? I watch it immediately. I watch it as soon as you post it, Paul. He waits. Did you hear that, Paul? Come on. I'll chat with you, Paul. It'll be just like this. Really, really easy, right? This was easy. This was easy, Godless Engineer. This was painless, right?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, nah, I don't know if it was painless. All right, what were my last questions, John Buck? I had one or two more,
and then we'll flat earthers.
No, that's what he does. You do a lot of flat Earth stuff, right?
Yeah,
engineer.
Yeah, it's not my main thing. Like I don't mainly do them, but I would say that is a bulk of my content right now. But even with that, I'm trying to pivot it to be more just like general anti-science. Mm-hmm. So like I've covered some more conspiracy theory laden stuff, which is kind of like flat Earth theory is kind of a subset of conspiracy theory.
You had a really astute observation from your latest flat Earth video, like how, I guess, kind of the psychology behind the flat earthers, where it might be like kind of one of the detrimental capacities of the internet is like people have the ability to just go online and look at something that is kind of more on the fringe.
Reinforces their delusion 50 times over, so they can live completely inside of it.
Yeah, having that secret knowledge where like, oh, nobody else realizes this sort of thing. And especially for like laymen where they don't have a good scientific or historical background, where they're just looking things up and then, I don't know, trying to fit it in with their own
don't know why it's wrong. Like they don't have enough knowledge of the subject to even know why they're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's your insight. We're asking you. You're the expert on flat earthers. It's your insight.
Well, no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I agree that the access to the internet and everything just allows them to reinforce their delusions and everything like that. And they're really powered by the whole unfalsifiable narrative, because it's either their theory about things or something adjacent to their theory, but anything reasonable is just labeled as propaganda by the NWO or something like that. So it really is it's reliant on the mistrust of everything that you've come to know and everything that you're told by any kind of authority.
Right, that's a big, huge part of it, and that you put more trust in secret authorities. That's the whole conspiracy theory thing. Like I was thinking about the psychology of it altogether, not necessarily flat Earth. It's like if let's say that Las Vegas shooting, and there was a Las Vegas shooting, and the government's trying to cover up something, and so what? Like what happens if we find out that there are, like, you know, secret powerful people in cabals that are doing XYZ? You know, how does that? Why obsess about it? You know what I'm saying? What's the psychology as to why you care that the moon landing didn't happen? Which it didn't, by the way. They're right on that one. You know,
Well,
but why?
Yeah. Well, you see, they like having special knowledge, and
Right.
I feel like it comes from a place of like not being good at, you know, science or math or anything like that, and then all of a sudden, you know,
Or
you're
girls, or girls, or life, or careers, or friends. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But you know, they haven't really been all that good at it, and so they finally find people that are like, hey, we're bad at math too, but you know, we have this special knowledge that, you know, you should really understand as well. And they're like, oh, well, that makes sense to me because I'm bad at math as well. and,
Right.
and so it just kind of like it pulls people in because they feel special in the sea of not feeling special, or the sea of not understanding things that they feel like they should understand, or something like that. Like, I feel like that's the main draw.
Yeah, I would accept that. That sounds like John Buck. That sounds like an astute observation too. What would you say?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I was just kind of thinking about something like there's a lot of times where we're kind of trying to make sense out of areas of knowledge that we have no like skill in a lot of times, that, and like, yeah, a lot of times for the experts, there's a whole kind of system of process that anybody that's just a layman wouldn't have that same level of
Access
careful,
to.
yeah, well, even care towards supporting. And I don't know, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, well, that's where you got a whole bunch of people who thinking they know more. I mean, it's the famous insult Dunning-Kruger, where you think you know so much because you don't have enough information to even know how ignorant you are.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the basis of it.
Yeah, and it's very easy to fall into that trap for a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. So John, Engineer John, if we have streams and chats, you're down for hanging out? Down for, like, every once in a while, say we'll talk about X, and you might pop by and say,
oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. The other thing I was going to tell, what would be interesting when you were talking about kind of channeling off, like you have your base audience. I had Digital Hammurabi on here, and not necessarily they're brilliant. They were fun. They were really fun to talk to, but I'm not necessarily interested in their history, you know, ancient history like that. But I would love to start trying to get general history people coming on, things like that. You know what I mean? Where you were talking about how you sort of start to branch off a little within the context of your channel and involve yourself.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Okay.
But anyways, I was also, yeah, if we have conversations about stuff, you know, that I think you'd be interested in, I will tell you about them and give you an opportunity to join in. Does that sound good?
I appreciate that.
Well, cool. Yeah, this was fun. John Buck, you have anything to say to our good friend?
No, I just wanted to thank you, John, for coming in. This was a great chat. I'm really glad we did this. This was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad too. I had a lot of fun talking. I lost track of time with it.
Yeah. So this was a blast. The only reason I'm ending it is because it's been almost 2 hours. Well, it's been about an hour and 40 minutes. If Christy Santiago, come on. The invitation is extended to you. Come on, next week we'll do the same thing, same idea. If she listens, I don't know if she's listening right now, but anything you want to say to the audience, Mr. Engineer, before you depart?
If anybody hasn't already, go on over to Godless Engineer and subscribe. And I've got a live stream tonight that I'm going to be doing, and then we've got I got a special video that I'm getting ready right now to post in the morning, and then next week it'll just be the same stuff over again.
Cool. And subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, which you already have, I know. This channel right here, where my voice is coming from. Subscribe. All right, so then we'll wrap it up. Mr. John Buck, take us home.
Will do.
Good night.